Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast, where we share stories and conversations with amazing people who've achieved extraordinary success by embracing their struggles and imperfections. They've achieved what they have, not despite their perceived flaws, but because of them as well. On this episode, we speak to Beth Sherman, multi-Emmy Award winner and comedy writer who has written for David Letterman, for Ellen, and for The Tonight Show. And she's going to spill the beans on what it means to be perfectly flawed in the world of comedy. Okay, well, welcome, Beth. Beth Sherman. Such a pleasure to have you here. And I've invited you here today because although we haven't really met each other very much, I think we've encountered each other a couple of times, I know that you do some amazing work helping people that maybe aren't funny at all. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I hope it's amazing. I hope it's just competent. I've got a lot of years in
But
comedy.
it's true that they're not funny. It's true. That bit's true.
Well, they don't have to be funny. For background, I'm a comedian and a comedy writer for 27 years.
You've worked on some amazing shows as well, haven't you? Jay Leno?
Jay Leno, yeah,
Leno.
The Tonight Show. The Tonight Show.
Do all British people get that pronunciation wrong?
A few, yeah.
Okay. Ellen DeGeneres.
Only the people from New Zealand get that one wrong. You worked on Ellen. The Letterman, the Oscars.
Wow.
A lot of award shows and a lot of late night talk shows.
And you've even won an award for one of your Netflix shows.
Nominated for a Writers Guild Award for a Netflix special,
Mm-hmm.
and then but also won a bunch of Emmys for Ellen and some other shows that I've worked on.
Not just a bunch, you've won seven. And in brackets, 7. As it says on your bio.
Seven.
7 in writing and 7 in numbers. So I've remembered the number, and that's very, very impressive. And it's also a little bit daunting for me interviewing you when you've been in these top studios in the world with top proper professional interviewers, not somebody who just does their little podcast on the side. So it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and please don't be nervous, because also usually in those situations, I'm the one skulking around behind the scenes and trying to set people up for success, trying to either set the celebrity up for success or the host up for success. So the only thing that's in it for me is for both of us to look good.
Well, that's a relief. Although, to be honest, I'm not really that nervous because I just think we're going to have a great conversation, and the conversation that we are going to have, maybe we might talk about something different, but it's around this idea of being perfectly flawed, and how, which is good because that's the title of the podcast.
It's convenient, yeah.
Yeah, so it was funny how that all kind of came together.
It was about landscaping. It would be awkward, but
exactly. So perfectly flawed, but particularly how in comedy and comic writing, there is a part of it is about being flawed or revealing our sort of imperfections, but also using those as our route to humour. Is that how it works?
yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, humor is all about finding commonality. If you want to make a room full of people laugh or smile and create emotional connection, and which is what comedians do, we're just very good at it. It's honesty, and honesty usually involves things that are, I don't know if the right word's uncomfortable, but things that one doesn't usually talk about, especially if one is British.
So it's the unsayable. Well, yes, and you know, you're an American in Britain, which also has its own. I think we've got lots here to unpick. You know, American in Britain, honesty versus masking. Both of those two things be great here. But I'd love just to hear your. I know you've also done stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I did a lot of stand-up
in Iraq.
Yes. I mean, I did it all sorts of places, but one of those, so I was a comedy writer in TV for 27 years and lots of late night talk shows and award shows. And during that time, 15 of those years, because I didn't have the guts to do it before I was actually getting paid to write comedy, I didn't have the guts to stand on a stage and do stand-up, but started doing it. and did
Was
it.
that terrifying when you first started?
It was the first time. And then you get a laugh. And then everything falls into place. I mean, it's still difficult and it's still hard, but man, it's a drug. It's a drug. It's the best sound in the world is a room full of people laughing. So did a lot of stand-up. I was always writing on shows. That was my day job, writing jokes for people. But nights and weekends and during hiatus weeks, the way TV works in the States, very often you'll have the summer off, or there will be, over the course of the year, weeks off where the show will be dark, where you're not doing a show. And so then I would do the road, and I would be all over the country doing stand-up. And as part of that, I did a military tour in Iraq or Iraq, but I'm from Philadelphia. It's Iraq. Iraq. You can take her out of the States, but you can't take the States out of her.
Even if she goes to Iraq.
Even when she goes to Iraq. But did, spend a few weeks doing stand-up. It was 4 or 5 shows a day. And the guy who arranged this particular tour, his real focus, what he wanted and what was meaningful to him, because he did quite a few of these tours, was to go to the places where the other entertainment doesn't go. So we spent 2.5 weeks going to combat outposts and forward operating bases.
Wow.
And this was in 2008 when things were heated. So we would go to these bases by Black Hawk helicopter, 4 or 5 a day, and do stand-up for groups of guys. I mean, it's 15, 20, 30, 40 guys, depending on where we were.
Did it not feel a bit sort of trivial almost to be there when people were kind of losing their lives and you were kind of fighting the war through laughter?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a World War II veteran, so in comparison, it seemed less impressive. But honestly, these guys were so appreciative of us coming there. This particular tour, it was 3 of us, 2 guys and me, and it was really interesting, that whole tour, because it was explained to us by the guy who ran it, who was a comedian who'd done quite a few, that really the first thing is there's no such thing as hacky in Iraq, and by that he meant whatever you got to do to make them laugh, do it.
So what?
Period.
Even
so
the jokes, even. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, in hacky and comedy would sort of be, is this trite? Is this old? Is this used? And it was sort of, you don't need to have pride.
Free for all.
You just need the result.
Yeah.
That is what you're here to do. These guys, we can only imagine what they're going through, whatever gets the result.
And sometimes people want to hear, I mean, we're going off on a tangent and you're trying to get through this story. But sometimes it seems to me that people want the obvious joke, don't they? They're like depending on it because it gives relief. You want, I know this from doing improv, you want the person to say the obvious thing.
Sometimes, yeah, because that's it's sort of understanding what people want and giving it to them. And sometimes you have to do it with a roll to your eyes, but everyone
and through gritted teeth.
But
like,
everyone
I can't believe I'm
understands.
telling this joke. But also what I was saying, what I was saying about kind of you're winning the war one laugh at a time, and making and kind of trivializing what you're doing. Actually, I fully believe that there is a lot of there's a huge amount of value for comedy in the darkest of situations. So, I mean, I was being a little bit trite and trivial when I said
but
that.
I took it in the spirit. I mean, and of course, and really it was made clear to us, your job is to be a distraction, which was perfectly fair. I mean, that absolutely made sense, because it wasn't just about going and doing the shows and the 3 of us would each do 15, 20 minutes. But it wasn't really about that hour so much as it was also about, I mean, he also told us, and improv, but it was all yes and in this case, what it meant was if they want you to take a ride in the assault vehicle that they just got, or they want you to hold the weapon and try to shoot at the target so that you can be,
Laughed at.
you're going to be very bad at it.
Yeah.
Laughed at, exactly. It's whatever you have to do to sort of, one, create the connection, and also you just be a different face. They've been staring at the same other 20 faces for a very long time, and to just be a different person on base.
So I envisaged that you were at this scene, and there would be like I've seen these comedy acts with thousands of soldiers sitting. Was it that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
it wasn't one of the Bob Hope specials that you see on TV where it's just here's everyone who's fighting in Korea here to see your show. This is just a bunch of guys who, Lord knows what they were doing 2 hours ago. There was one time I was watching the other comic, watching the guy before me, and the guy was sitting there with a dog, and I forgot that I was on a military base that was by necessity very secure. And I said, "Can I pet your dog?" And he said, "No." And I realized, oh, right, because I'd probably lose my hand. Right.
You don't pet the dog. It's not a pet.
Not a pet. Not a pet. That dog's working. If that dog is near you, you've done something questionable.
So then you went up in front of these
Oh, yeah. And well, and the way I tell this story on stage is that, and this kind of goes back to the core of honesty and what comedians do in sort of pointing out the elephant in the room and being authentic, which is the truth is funny. And what we do as comedians is observe and report truth. So you don't need jokes. When I work with speakers, you don't need jokes. You just need truth and the ability to see it and share it. And in this case, the truth was that here I was, middle-aged lesbian, doing stand-up for a bunch of 19-year-old Marines who had not seen a woman in quite some time. And I was not who they were hoping to see, which I knew, which was fine. But in what humor has the ability to do is to very, very quickly build trust.
Mm.
And so I used truth to build that trust. And my opening line when I would go up for these shows was truth, which was, the big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. You get me. And if you're listening and you don't know who the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders are, I would say picture the Spice Girls, then, not now, sort of at the height of their fame, in bikinis jumping up and down waving pom-poms. That's not me. and that was something I knew would not go unnoticed by those 19-year-old Marines. But by reflecting, it wasn't even a joke. It was just a statement of truth, right?
Yeah.
The big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. And when I do this story on stage, I have a slide that shows the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, legs akimbo,
Yeah.
at one of the big bases doing a USO tour. But it was just truth.
Mm.
But I was reflecting back to the audience what might have been in the thought bubble above their head, and
Right.
It was self-awareness.
There's there's certainly something self-deprecating about it as well. You're owning your flaws. You're owning, I mean, not that it's a flaw, but, in their eyes, it might be a flaw compared to what they were hoping for. So,
Well, yeah, but I would push against that, and this is a little bit, push back against that
yeah.
a little bit, because I spend a lot of time when I work with speakers or in leadership or anything, making a very clear distinction between self-awareness and being self-aware and being self-deprecating.
Right.
Because most people use them interchangeably the way you just have.
Okay.
And in sort of looking closer at it, I've realized, no, these are very different things. Because being self-deprecating is putting yourself down just to get a laugh. And
Right.
when people worry about using that humor might affect their credibility, I think that's, you can be self-deprecating. You can put yourself down to get a laugh. It'll work. But you're risking something, especially if you're something that I like to call a woman or
true.
a minority or anyone else that's less than, because we don't know who's in our audiences, and if they potentially are biased against us,
You're really just you're making yourself.
Why are you going to make their point?
Yeah, and again, back to improv, it's like the status thing. So you're just losing status unnecessarily when you didn't need to.
Exactly. So, but self-awareness is simply being aware of what the person you're speaking to might be noticing or thinking, and acknowledging that to remove it as a potential distraction.
Right.
There's not a judgment attached to it. So when I say, the big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, you get me.
Yeah.
I am not saying you poor thing. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of that, kind of as a wink between the lines, but I'm not explicitly saying that, and I'm very careful not to, because I don't want them to do that math. I want it to just simply be a statement of fact.
I think it seems to me that you're actually reclaiming your high status, because by voicing it and you being the person that goes there first,
yeah,
then you've claimed it and snatched it out of them. So now they can't complain about it because you've already got the laugh yourself. Yeah. So you've taken control. You've basically taken, to use military job, taken the weapon out of their hands, haven't you?
Yeah, and that's what humor is. An incredibly useful tool for that. It's a way to reframe things and take the power back.
So one of the things that I'm really interested in is how, with both comedy and in speaking and any kind of leadership presentation experience, how far we often talk about being vulnerable in leadership, but how far it's okay to go in being vulnerable, and how much that vulnerability is a risk and it doesn't work. So in comedy, like, how vulnerable should you get, and where does it go stray into risky territory?
Well, I mean, in comedy, I think it's the difference between where you are. It's knowing your audience. If you're on a comedy stage, a stand-up stage, then that's entirely up to you, how open and raw and how much you want to share. I mean, people talk about sex and what they do in the bathroom and the bedroom and all those sorts of things. If you're using it in leadership or in a professional capacity, and I but I work with speakers and people in leadership, helping them tell their story or be more compelling on stage, what you're going to cover is going to be probably more narrow. I think it's sort of it's admitting the fact that there is the possibility that you could be vulnerable. It's just admitting you're human, I guess, is the shortest way to say it. Your level of, generally, I think most people are comfortable admitting they're human.
Yeah. I mean, that side of things is really important, and people used to always say even the Queen, shits, and that's how delicately I say that. It's because I'm British.
It's just whispered.
Even the Queen shits. But that acknowledgement of the realities that we have. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, when it talks to credibility, humor in leadership, and what it does to your credibility, there's an example that I like to use. There's another speaker who you may know, but he is a former British commando, and this guy is 6'4". He's a gigantic guy, and he was also very high up by the time he served in war zones all over the world and left the military.
He was always very high up.
Always very, there you go, I set you up. Always very high up, but a big imposing presence.
Yeah.
And he and we've had a lot of really interesting conversations about how he used humor very intentionally as a tool for leadership. And he actually once called it a force multiplier, which I thought was really cool. And he offered a bunch of examples, but the one I always think is the most interesting is he said he would use it when he would have to speak to civilians. He'd be in a war zone, and here's this big guy, 6'4", big army commando man in uniform, armed to the teeth, in a room full of village elders. And he needed to establish trust very, very quickly, because he would need to get them on side to do whatever it was he needed. And he would use humor. And by that, again, he's not a clown. He's not a comedian. He's not going to go do, let me do 15 minutes. Let me put the the M15 down and do 15 until I get the light. But even just a little bit in that context would be a little clumsy with a local custom, sort of being a little vulnerable, not being good at something, or if they gave him a drink, sort of the local fire water, doing a little bit of a that's kind of strong. Just anything he had to do to get a little bit of a laugh or smile. And I often talk about humor as a way to say things between the lines, as a love language. And I asked him, when he told me that, what were you saying between the lines? And he didn't even hesitate. He said, I was saying that inside this uniform is a person.
Is a human being.
Yeah.
Back to being human.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, to me, that's the essence of leadership, isn't it? I mean, you're not trying to be a fool, you're not trying to be a clown, but you do want the people that you lead to understand, okay, I hold the authority here.
Yeah.
But I do want you to know that there is, inside this authority, there's a person.
Well, I think that's really interesting that so much of humour maybe comes down to let's just cut through all the posturing, cut through all the differences, back to the shared humanity that we both have together. And you earlier on spoke to me about self-awareness, and what is it that what's funny about self-awareness, and what's funny about people perhaps not being self-aware?
Well, truth is funny. So again, acknowledging the truth of the situation, acknowledging, well, having an awareness, having an understanding of how you are being perceived by people, reflecting back to them what's in that thought bubble above their head.
Right.
That self-awareness, you don't have to do a ton of it, but if you do a little bit of it, and if you do a little bit of it very early on, if you're speaking to an audience or you're at a networking event or you've just met someone new, suddenly you're a person, you're two people speaking.
Yeah.
You're not, you may also be an authority, but you're a person.
To give an actual example, I'm just thinking about when you're on stage and, I don't know, the alarm goes off, or it's really cold, or somebody bursts into the room suddenly, and if you try and carry on as though, nothing's happened, that would be ridiculous.
Because it's not what we do in real life.
No.
Right? If there's a loud noise, we turn around, we look.
So we have to name it. Whereas I suppose people that aren't very comfortable on stage will kind of go, oh, hope that hasn't happened, and try and ignore it.
Well, there's an instinct to stick to the script.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad instinct, because sometimes you want to just kind of keep things moving and you want to get through it. But if the distraction is, if it's something that has the potential to distract you or the audience, then it's in your interest to name it. And if everyone's distracted because the fire alarm is going off in the next room, well, one, get up and run. But if everyone's distracted by something falls over, or you're not sure, you don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but you can say, is everyone okay? Or someone sneezes. It's just that, bless you.
But it is quite funny if the fire alarm's going off in the next room and somebody's trying desperately to carry on and pretend it's not happening.
Well, yeah, and potentially dangerous. But the car alarm or that sort of thing, and that's.
But they're being laughed at. Then I suppose that's the if somebody's trying to carry on and ignore what's going on, and that can be a fun. I mean, I can imagine that in a comedy skit.
Well, because it's unnatural and it's not. Yeah, it's a lack of self-awareness. A lack of self-awareness can also be funny. I mean, that's why David Brent in The Office is funny, and so many of those Ricky Gervais characters are funny. That's why when Rishi Sunak, that's hard to say. I've only had 4 gins. Rishi Sunak. That's a tough. Yeah. Only say that sober, or just never say it.
Not
but
anymore.
When he did that press conference, and it was just pissing down rain, and he just soldiered on with no acknowledgement of it. It was, look, I get the instinct, which was, I'm making an important announcement. I don't want to be distracted. But sometimes the effort to not be distracted is distracting itself. Because no one remembers what that press conference was about. Everyone remembers that he was just standing there getting soaked, pretending it wasn't raining.
Well, there's a loss of status there, isn't there? Again, it doesn't make him look good. Whereas if it's raining and it's difficult to do it, and you take control and you say, you name it, and here's what's going on, and we can either battle on or we can do this another day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, and that wouldn't have been holding an umbrella, saying this is ridiculous, give me the umbrella, would not have been a tremendous amount of vulnerability. It would have been the natural thing to do. And it would have been, and so much of, I think, leadership and being on stage and self-awareness. It's just simply being who you are off stage or at home.
Yeah, it reminds me of I work with people to tell their story, speakers to find their story and their message and share it on stage. And so somebody asked me the other day, well, what do I do with my hands? People always want to know what to do with their hands. And I kind of go, well, what do you do with your hands the rest of the time? You know, just do what you do with your hands. But I call it Italian hands because you can amp it up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I got ethnic hands too. Ironically, well, not ironically, but interestingly, well, I'll let the audience judge whether it's interesting, but
well, you could let them judge whether it's ironic as well.
And ironic. But because I don't think it's ironic.
They can decide which it is. Or maybe let's throw in another adjective.
I'm running out. I need a thesaurus if I'm going to have
another one
more.
beginning with I. Irresistible. Impressingly.
Maybe.
Impressively. Note this.
I think it's whatever. I mean, when it comes to using hands, I think it's probably most authentic to do whatever feels natural to you. And when I'm in front of an audience, because I've got 15 years of stand-up experience, I feel way more comfortable with a hand mic in my hand. So not a headset mic, because then I just feel like Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do it.
Not an aerobics instructor, because that's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, it feels so unnatural to me. And for me, it becomes a distraction. In my own head, I'm thinking, I feel it. It feels, is it moving? I don't know if I'm using it correctly, or I'm just so conscious of it that it becomes a distraction. But because I have so much muscle memory of just holding a hand mic.
You go into the zone, do you? It's
I really do.
You've got the hand mic. You know that, game on, you're a comedian. I love how you're pretending to hold a mic when there's an actual mic.
I'm pretending. I don't want to touch the mic. I worked in
no.
TV long enough to go, don't touch the mic. I'm in 2 unions, but this is not one of them.
Although she did break the mic. I'm just breaking the fourth wall here, but she did pull the mic out of the stand before we started.
I did. And then I tried to reblock your seating and your cameras.
But that's okay. But I do want to just circle back to Perfectly Flawed, just because, again, it's the name of our show here. And I do think there's something in Rishi Sunak. Can't say it now.
Speaking of flawed.
Yeah, exactly. It's that. Be flawed. Be out in the rain. It's perfect. I guess with Perfectly Flawed, it's that it's perfectly okay to be flawed. It's perfectly okay for the moment to be flawed, for the moment not to be perfect.
Life isn't perfect.
And that's perfect. And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, there's a difference between... It's absolutely possible to take your work seriously without taking yourself too seriously.
Interesting. That is interesting.
Good.
I can't remember whether the hand thing was, but...
Oh, that's it.
That is interesting, yeah.
Well, but it is. I mean, it's just reflecting back what life is. Life is, I mean, people think, oh, humor and leadership, humor on stage, and make a big deal of using it, not using it, how to use it. Humor is all through life. Humor comes at the most awkward moments, at what may feel like the most inappropriate moments, but that's where it happens in real life. I mean, people laugh at funerals, and it's not because they don't miss someone, it's because it's a release of tension. We use humor as a tool for resilience when life is awful. Yeah.
So it's the imperfect moments are what provide the humor.
Yeah. It's human.
The moments the flawed moments provide the humor, not the perfect moments.
Well, yeah, perfection isn't funny. If you're looking for good stories, and your truth is funny, and if you're looking to add good stories to your leadership or your talk, perfection is not funny. Flaws are funny, and they're true. So when you're talking about, if you want to add really organic humor, just give us examples of things. If you speak about, I mean, if you're speaking about leadership, what was your learning curve? Most people don't come out of the womb as great leaders. Tell us about sometimes it didn't go well. If you talk about customer service, give us examples of difficult customers. And if you want to places in particular that comedians go for funny truth are self-awareness, which we've spoken about before, which is simply acknowledging whatever the audience might be noticing or thinking, and specificity. So specificity is give us very particular examples of things, because that's where the real humanity comes from. I mean,
Really? Okay. So can you give some examples of that? Because I right now I'm not really getting how specificity is humorous. So
well, there's a great quote from James Joyce.
Why do you laugh at that?
Because it's author of Ulysses. Author of Ulysses, noted funny man James Joyce. But I don't think he was talking about humor at the time, but he's got a great quote that in the particular lies the universal. So the more specific something is, the more relatable it is. So, for example, okay, here's an example that I use quite often. If I come into work, or you see me, and I've got a bandage on my hand, and you say, "What happened?" And I say, "Well, I cut myself." That's the information. That is the truth of the situation. But if I tell you how I cut myself, if I give you the specific details, and I tell you, 7:30 Sunday morning, I cut myself while trying to open a frozen pizza with a steak knife and ended up with 7 stitches, which is a true story. One Sunday morning, tried with a hangover, needed some carbs, needed some fat. Only thing I had was a pizza. Was trying to open the plastic with a steak knife. But that's a story. That is very, very specific. And then what I do if I'm on stage is I ask other people, can you beat that? Who can beat that? What's your dumbest injury? And, half the hands will go up because it's relatable. Everyone has a story of hurting themselves in a dumb way, right? We've all done it. And so even people, it's a great way to show that truth is funny, because even people who don't consider themselves to be funny people, which is a lot of the groups that I'm in front of, and you'll get these very, very serious people sharing stories that are fantastic.
Wow. But also there's a bonding through mutually being dumb, or in other words, mutually being flawed.
It's just relatable. Yeah, exactly.
We're all saying, look, I'm not this great leader that
or I may be, but and
I'm still still have this.
But I also fell out of bed and broke my shoulder. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
I mean, it levels the playing field, and I've gotten some great answers, because there was some woman said I picked up an owl and it bit me, and I said, okay, I'm going to need more details. Let's get it more specific.
Yeah.
Well, I was out having some drinks. Okay. And then I thought I saw the owl on the ground. I thought when I picked it up and I put it in my coat.
Just so random as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I had someone on a podcast the other day. I used this as an example, and she said, "Oh, I don't have a story about me, but my husband." And she told me that her husband cut his hand badly enough to need a bunch of stitches because he was sawing a pint of Haagen-Dazs in half because he didn't believe her when she promised to only eat her half.
Wow.
I mean, it's so specific.
But that would make such a great, I don't know what it would make.
But it's so
what a
specific.
Brilliant visual. Yeah.
Right, but it's a brilliant visual, and it's so specific, and it's relatable, and it's true. It's just truth, right? You laughed out loud. There's no joke there.
But it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. But doesn't it make you think of all the times that you've done something? And also, humor is a way to say things between the lines. I mean, all storytelling, there's always that other level between the lines. Think about what we know. You don't know the woman, you don't know the husband, but we now know something about the dynamic of their relationship, and you know something about him. And I'm sure he was doing it
sketched out as the whole dynamics encapsulated in that one little moment. Yeah.
And in a laugh.
Yeah.
And it's a huge laugh because it's wonderful. I mean, painful.
Yeah.
You need a tetanus shot after. I didn't ask if they ate the ice cream before it melted, if it just went back in the fridge, or if they ate it, with the hand in the dish towel on the way to the A&E. But
well, at least it would have kept his hand numb.
There you go, keep it from swelling.
Yeah. So what do you think is the difference between British and American humour? I'm sure you've been asked that before.
It's a generality, but it tends to be drier. I've always been drawn to it because just my own natural sense of humor is on the drier side. The British tend to embrace the absurd a bit more than Americans do.
Is that the surreal as well, or would you
Yeah.
distinguish between those absurd and surreal?
Uh, I mean, that's kind of a fine line.
Yeah.
I'm not all book smart like you are.
Not all book smart.
But I would say, yeah, I mean, the British tend to sort of be more in that world
Yeah.
than Americans. I mean, it's the Monty Pythons and the Noel Fieldings. I mean, Noel Fielding I adore, and my wife loves him, and I am someone, I have pretty good comedy credentials. I adore him on Bake Off. I think he's charming. I would love to be at a dinner party with him. He makes me laugh. My wife and her best friends will fall on the floor laughing at his sketches. I stare at it and think, I don't get it.
What, the Mighty Boosh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, I don't think it's not offensive to me.
No.
It just doesn't connect with me because
Is your wife British or American?
She's British.
Oh,
yes,
right.
yes.
Okay.
Which is why I'm here.
Oh, I was going to ask.
I mean, not here,
Yeah.
but yes, she's British.
Yeah.
So, and you the British tend to there's more of a one-person show. It's a little bit so when it comes to stand-up, there's more of a one-person show and more of a narrative sort of storytelling tradition to it. The sort of shows that go to Edinburgh, as opposed to American stand-up, which is there's always an arc and a story to it, but comedy clubs tend to be there's an opener, a middle, and a feature, an opener, a middle, and a headliner.
Right.
And so that's what you're going to see if you go there, as opposed to a theater show, more of a theater style show.
Are there more one-liners, would you say, with American comedy?
I think that just depends on the comedian. I mean, I think once someone gets to a Netflix special level, in comedy and in comedy writing, I'd sort of quantify it, or we would quantify it as jokes per page.
Right. Okay. Because I was going to ask you that because you were talking about when you first started doing stand-up, it was like a drug to have people actually laughing. What was it like before when you were writing X number of jokes per page, and you had no idea how well they performed on the laughometer? How do you kind of deal with that?
We don't have an actual laughometer.
Do you not?
Well, the way...
You don't just feed them into a machine?
Yeah.
One day maybe AI will be able to do it. Yeah.
Although I've read the comedy that AI writes, and I've got job security for a little while longer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Well, let's talk about that after this, because I'd be really interested to know kind of what we might do to get AI to understand humour. But go ahead.
Let's not work too hard.
No,
I have a mortgage.
True. True.
What we were
so what's it like?
I've got ADD and menopause. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, let's talk about that as well, because I have as well. So we'll both be able to lose track together. But I have remembered where we were. It's how many jokes per minute?
Yes. So the way humor is written...
Not how many, sorry.
Well, but it's sort of the pace, and how do you know what the result is going to be?
And how funny these jokes are.
So the way humor is written in the States, or the way TV shows are written in the States, it tends to be both sitcoms and what we would consider comedy variety, which are the kind of shows that I worked on, which are late-night talk shows driven by a comedian that are on 5 nights a week. So picture Graham Norton, but 5 nights a week.
Wow.
Yes, it's a lot of is, yes. And so that tends to be written for the most part in what's called a writer's room. And a writer's room in half hour in sitcoms would be where everyone figures the story and the outline to a particular episode together, and then one person goes off and writes it from that outline.
Okay.
And then the week that show is going to be filmed, that script will come into the writer's room, and it's the room's job to punch it up. And in comedy, punching up is sort of tightening, editing, and really the job is to make it as funny as possible, line by line, but not just as funny as possible in the voice of the characters. in comedy variety where I worked, everyone would pitch jokes for something, and then depending on how the show was structured or depending on what the bit was, then that stuff, we would all meet as a group and sort of edit down the sketch to a particular number of jokes, what sort of made people laugh in the room, sort of get
And that's how you test it.
Find out what worked on the
Okay, so you are evaluating that. I mean, that you're still getting
you have to
literal
make
laughs.
Other comedy writers laugh.
That must be pretty tough.
So if it makes other comedy writers laugh, or if in rehearsal it makes the camera guys laugh,
okay,
which is real hard to do.
Oh, I was going to say it must be. I was going to say, oh, thank God for the camera guys, because it's not other comedians, but they've seen it all, have they?
Well, I mean, thank God for them, because you knew that if you could make them laugh,
you're onto a winner.
Then, because they have heard everything, then you're onto something. So that's how. But in stand-up, there's no way to know, and really in speaking as well, there's no way to know unless you're in front of an audience. It's a dialogue, and the audience has a part to play. And remembering that it's a dialogue is also very important for comedians and in particular speakers and people who don't do a lot of public speaking. It's not something that you're just, you're not talking at people. This is a conversation, and speaking to them as if you are speaking to one other person, and making an effort to be engaging the way you would make an effort in a room full of friends. And very much when I am trying to get people to sort of add a bit of comedy seasoning to a story that they're telling in a talk, because I work with a lot of speakers who are unbelievably talented at something. A lot of Olympic medalists and people who have climbed Everest. It's actually silly the number of people all of a sudden I know who've climbed Everest in the past. It's odd. But they're really good at some things, but they'll tell a story, and to me, they're leaving all the best bits out. So how would you tell that story if you were telling it to a friend over a glass of wine? What are the details that you would add in? Because they have this real natural and understandable urge to sort of, I mean, it's almost like they want to be seen, or they're as very serious and very dedicated and very
earnest.
They get very
maybe.
earnest. Yeah.
Not just Ernest Shackleton. Just
there you go. Yes.
Reference, but yeah, they want to seem like they are.
Well, they're just used to it because they have a work ethic.
Back to the human thing.
Well, exactly. They have a work ethic, and the way they have achieved these incredible goals is by just head down and grinding, but showing people what the humor and the humanity and what made them roll their eyes. And when adversity happened and they conquered it, did they take a moment to just go kick the wall or insult the cat? You know, not a euphemism, but like, did they, but what do you do when the person that you've been beaten by 0.03 seconds and there goes your dream? And sometimes the answer to that is incredibly relatable. It's that they went off and ate a pizza because they've been, on a very strict diet, and they just, I'll show them, and they go off and eat, a large pizza on their own. But these are small things, but that's what makes these stories relatable.
And it's back to being it's the vulnerability in it, isn't it? It's these little moments, like, or even that I don't know, that something was chafing around their hood, or just tiny little things that I think those are the things people want to know anyway when they hear about some amazing adventure. I worked with a guy like like the people you work with who's an amazing adventurer, Everest and other things. And he did these talks which packed in about 10 extraordinary adventures all in one talk. And it's kind of, and then we followed in the footsteps of Shackleton, and then we did. And I used to think, just take one of them. Yeah. They're so immense and extraordinary. They've lost any human connection because nobody can relate to you. You're such a superhuman.
Exactly. Well, and it's diminishing returns, so that all kind of gets. But I do these 1 hour sessions with people, so to sort of go through and figure out where to dial things up, and it just really it's not me writing. I can sit there and write 4 pages of jokes, but that doesn't if they're not authentic to them and organic to the material, then who cares? They're not useful. So it's a lot of me just asking questions as the short attention span person who might be sitting in their audience.
What would make you pick up, and what would make you kind of engage when you hear it?
Exactly.
Is that kind of what you're doing? Yeah.
Because it's finding the real truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a client who's also a friend, and she was describing, so she's paraglided off of
Paraglid.
Paraglided, yeah, paraglid. She paraglid off Mont Blanc, and she's climbed Everest, and she's done all these things, and all of these incredible adventures because she's got a motor.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that she's a lot. So she sort of there's a part of her talk where she says, and then I did this, and so I just told them this, and then I went and I did this, and I did this, and I go, wow, wow, because if I'm imagining myself sitting in the audience and thinking, well, that's how nice for you.
Yes, exactly.
I don't have that.
It's very alienating almost, isn't it? It's actually pushing the audience member away rather than engaging them, because it's sort of like incredible.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you're a motivational speaker, the goal is to have people believe in themselves, not to reinforce, I could never do that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's a lot. And she said, yeah, I've been told that. I've been told I'm a lot. Mm. And I said, how? How have you been? Like, can you give me a specific example?
There's a crack in the,
of someone telling you, and she's got a great sense of humor about herself. But I said, can you give me a specific example of how do your friends describe you?
Yeah.
How do people say? And she said, oh, and I can always sort of tell when they've realized it. And she said, one time my friend picked up a mirror and held it up and went running towards me, screaming, holding the mirror.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So that this is just the reflection of her running.
Huge. Yeah.
And he said, this is what it's like to be with you.
That's brilliant.
But it made so much sense. And so now within the first probably 4 or 5 minutes of her talk, she has this fantastic natural energy, and people get a sense of it. And then just as they get a sense of it and go, and she did this, and she did this, and she did that. She said, I know I'm a lot. My friend once described me as, picked up a mirror and went. And it's her life, it's her line, and it is self-aware, and it's funny. And that's...
And it's really engaging, and it just breaks down the barrier between her being obviously an incredible human being, and her being a human being, like everybody else, with her flaws.
Exactly. It's wonderful, and people really respond to that because it's reflecting back to them what might be in the thought bubble above their head, which one could be a potential distraction of going, wow, I don't have that kind of energy. Yeah. That's a potential distraction, even if someone's thinking that. Because if someone's thinking that, just simply, they're not listening to you. If I'm having a thought and I'm thinking, I don't think I could do that, I'm not fully listening to you. And also it brings them on side.
And it's the self-awareness that she possesses to say that she knows she's a lot, so that then gets removed as a problem in terms of connection and trust that you were talking about.
Well, exactly. The trust, yes, and that self-awareness, it really does build trust, because it's, okay, I know you're a motivational speaker, but you're not one of those motivational speakers. It's sort of that, okay, you're not going to... Because often those sorts of speakers are... I know I'm not going to be that. You can tell me, stand up and put your chest out and your chin up and you're going to be great, and look in the mirror and say you're going to be great. And while my brain may know all those things are true, if I'm sitting in the audience, I'll think,
yeah,
okay.
It's all right. Yeah, come on.
But seeing the flaws and seeing how you reflected back, it's powerful. It's engaging. It's endearing.
Our hearts connect with them when somebody opens up like that, and especially I think when somebody appears superhuman, and then they appear so vulnerable in these moments. I think there's really something very intoxicating about that. It's like that in a lot of hero's journey type stories, there's the flawed hero, and in books there's the flawed narrator, the person that they're not this perfect person, and we love that. I don't know whether you remember Cracker. I mean, really old show. Do you remember Cracker? It's like he's a crime busting guy. Anyway, there have been so many. He's a very flawed detective, and he was an alcoholic. He had various problems, but he also was the only person who could solve it. Like House, Hugh Laurie in House. I mean, that's another really good example. He's a really flawed human being, and yet he was so, he had such a genius.
And it's so true to life, too, because most people who are good at things, they're good at that thing. The rest of life, often not so much, right? I mean, we're good at our jobs, or we're good at, everyone is not good at everything. We're often good at a couple of things if we're lucky.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, it's messy. And that, again, it's human. And so having, as a leader, as a speaker, being willing to simply admit, yeah, I'm all of these things, but, also I can barely get dressed in the morning and get to the gig. But, but I've got all of these accolades, and I'm very, very good at this thing. But that contrast is what makes us incredibly human and interesting to listen to and compelling.
Well, because of my own ADHD, my brain's going off in a few different directions here. But there are two things that I wanted to pull together. And then in the middle of it sits this discussion around ADHD, which we haven't had, but maybe that's absolutely perfect. Perfectly Flawed, that we've omitted to talk about that. So what I was going to say before, well, you can discuss any of these. So one is that we didn't talk really about ad-libbing, but when you're on stage and you say the funny thing without it being pre-rehearsed, because it's observational in the moment. And for me, I find that the easiest way to get a laugh. I have no experience of writing jokes or writing a funny script, so I only get a laugh really if it's ad-lib. I can't make it work. And then that also linked up to a question I had for you, which is, when you're a writer, you were obviously writing for people that were really skilled at delivering a joke in lots of different voices. You talked about having to do it in different voices. So, I mean, those two things, I think, can you say more about what makes some people really great with timing and humour, and other people maybe better on the ad-libbing, and how does that all work?
Sure. Well, as for ad-libbing, I mean, it's very compelling if you're in the audience, because it shows someone is very present.
Right.
And often, again, you're being a little bit vulnerable. You're just being human. You've noticed something and you're saying something, and in that moment, you're being often someone who is closer to who you really are, as opposed to the professional persona.
So so is that extra funny because it's in the now and people like something right now?
You often get extra credit. It's sort of that they've seen you. Well, they give you extra credit because they think, right off the top of her head, she said it.
Right.
But here's the secret in stand-up. Look, you watch any Netflix special, it looks like it's right off the top of their head.
Yeah.
But any Netflix special, they've done that 500 or 1,000 times. The skill is not showing the work. The skill is making it look like it's just kind of coming to you right in the moment, just perfectly written and timed.
But did you know that some people needed their jokes sort of articulated a certain way in order to be able to deliver them well, whereas others, like there must be different styles that people have?
Sure, you definitely. Well, and going back to those ad-libs, if you speak for a living, or you speak often, or you speak as part of your job, remember them and reuse them. Because those are often the things that are the most wonderful. That's what comedians do. We would sort of call it writing on stage, but it's also noticing, what did I just say? That got a great reaction. Let me remember that. And then next time I tell that story, and then I will ad-lib this extra bit. But those are often the best bits, because you already know it works. It's pre-tested. And I mean, that's what I do. And when I'm talking to people about their stories and they say, yeah, one time I said this, and you can even say that sometimes, because if someone in the audience says something to you, or you get, in relative terms, a heckle, or someone, one time I told this story and there was a guy in the back and he said this. I mean, you can just tell
that story.
Tell that story.
The added story.
Yeah. And as far as you were asking about the voice.
Yeah, the different ways different people can land jokes. So.
Well, what I try to do is, and that's why I like to work with people in real time, or people who are not professionally funny. I like to work with them in real time because I want to use their words. I'm trying to get the truth out of them, exactly how they say it, so that way it doesn't sound written. I mean, what I told you about Squash, the adventurer, I mean, that was her story. She said, oh, I've been described as this. And all I have to do is go, yeah, that. And so what gets typed into the document is literally, it's just come out of her mouth. So for me as a writer, it's the weird superpower I've developed after years of writing for other people, because not just on those talk shows, but on award shows, we write all the presenter copy. So it's Tom Hanks, Helen Mirren, everyone, anyone who's coming on, you want to write the draft in their voice. It's having an ear for it, because the same person might make the same observation, but how they would word it might be a bit different. But notice for yourself how you word things. Notice how you speak. And I do also spend a lot of time with people saying, just make it more conversational. Because again, it's one thing to type your story into a document.
Yes.
But the way we write and the way we speak are often very, very different. And if you try to read something out loud that's been written for the page, it can sound really stilted. It can sound like you're reading a greeting card almost. So write something, write whatever, process-wise, you don't have to really change your process. Write what you want to write, get all of your content down, and structure the way you want it to. But then in your rehearsing, read it out loud, and you will find yourself, you'll feel, it'll be awkward coming out of your mouth. So paraphrase yourself. Paraphrase what's on the page, and then rewrite what's on the page.
Don't learn it verbatim, basically.
Don't learn it verbatim, but if you need to, when I write stuff for myself, I write it and then I practice it out loud in my talks, because I'm explaining very particular things. And I rewrite it how I speak.
Well, Beth, I have a question for you, which I ask all my guests, which is, what does perfectly flawed mean to you?
Truth is funny. It's honesty. Flaws are a resource. Flaws are a benefit. The things that make us, they're what makes us human, and what makes us human is what brings us all together. So sharing those things, I think it's an asset, not a liability. Done well. I mean, don't just confess everything to people, but done well, it really draws people in.
So lean into our flaws.
Yes. I mean, don't fall over if one of them is being clumsy, but generally, yes.
And the other question I have for you is, what advice would you give the younger you? Stand
up straight, because someday 5'2" is going to be a distant memory. No, have patience. It's not my strong suit, but just keep doing good work, and what's meant to happen just will happen.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. It's been great to delve into your experiences around the world and back to Britain. I look forward to, what do I look forward to? I don't know, I'm just saying it. I look forward to seeing you again.
I look forward to nothing. This has been a nightmare. I look forward to this ending and seeing the door hit you on the ass on the way out.
No, I look forward to carrying on this conversation another time.
I do too.
Thanks. Thanks to Beth Sherman, and thank you for listening. I hope you found something of interest there. I found it just fantastic to think how it's our flaws, the things that we perhaps are most embarrassed about or ashamed of, our everyday reality that is often the thing that leads to the greatest humour, and how we can use our flaws for everything.